ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, is a regional bloc of 10 Southeast Asian countries established in 1967 to promote trade, economic growth, social progress, cultural development, regional peace and stability. The founding members were Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore and Thailand, with Brunei, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia and Myanmar joining over time. China and ASEAN have been each other's largest trading partners for 5 consecutive years. On Wednesday, the China-ASEAN Expo opened in Nanning in China. CGTN's Zheng Songwu has more in this report.
This year's event runs from Wednesday to Sunday. Chinese Vice President Han Zheng attended the opening ceremony and delivered a speech, emphasizing that the expo is a major platform for promoting friendly exchanges between China and ASEAN. AI products are the highlight of this year's expo, accounting for roughly 50% of the Chinese exhibits. To promote the construction of China and ASEAN Free Trade Area 3.0, the vision on China-ASEAN economic and trade cooperation will be released during the 5-day expo.
Our Myanmar country is based on the agriculture. So now we need agro-based industrial. This expo, 22nd China and ASEAN Expo, is our big chance for the trade.
I'm now at the exhibition hall, and more than 3,000 enterprises are showcasing their products, including agricultural products as well as AI products. And today I'm going to explore one of them.
Here, this one is from Lesser Sunda Island. From what I know, a lot of Chinese people come to this place. Yes.
So what do you think of doing business here with Chinese people?
Well, at first, I'll just say, like, at first, I was confused, right? Because we have language barriers. And aside from that, when I see in news, I always see, like, negative thing about China. But when I'm here, I see a lot of positive things. Like, I see Chinese people are kind and they do business well. And not just they do business well, but they give good programs like this, the exhibition place and all, and it's very good facilities.
The annual expo, together with the FTA 3.0, strengthens trade networks between China and ASEAN, helping regional economies navigate global trade headwinds. Zheng Song, CGTN, Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region.
There's much to talk about. Let's get to our panel. Isan O is Principal Advisor at the Pacific Research Center of Malaysia. Hong Nguyen is Assistant Professor at VinUniversity, where he focuses on politics and international relations. Also with us is Thomas Noto Suoneto. He serves as Vice President for International Affairs at the Indonesian Business Council. And Aina Tangan is a Senior Fellow at the Center for International Government Innovation and Chairman of Asian Narratives on Substack. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. Aina Tangan, as I said, China has been ASEAN's biggest trade partner since 2009. And that trade volume has now reached $687 billion. That's from January to August this year. How effective has ASEAN as a group been in boosting trade, in fostering sustainable growth?
Well, it's been very important on it. This is a situation which is a success story that continues to get better. This year on year, it's up. Trade is up 9.7%. That's huge, and it's not just up in terms of percentage. It is also in terms of total volume. We're talking about 16.8% of China's total volume of trade. Now it's far ahead the number one, but it continues, as I just said, to grow. And in terms of agricultural, it's about just over 20%. I mean, it's a huge number for ASEAN. But this fair is going beyond that. It starts talking about this 3.0 agreement, and this is getting into digital. And this is something very, very important. ASEAN does not just want to be a resource center. They want to start upgrading and going down the value chain so that they can create more jobs and opportunity.
And Aina, what can you tell us about cooperation in infrastructure development. I mean, this is something where China is playing a key role, not just in that region, but around the world.
Well, it's been very, very important area. You cannot develop your country, you can't develop factories if you just don't have the infrastructure. You need ports, you need energy, you need to have areas where people are taught the skills that are necessary to make the products that are out there. But you need to have a partner in that, and that is exactly what China has been. It's been the Belt and Road Initiative, over $1 trillion put up. So, you're talking over 12 years. China consistently has provided the same role in helping countries develop their infrastructure so that they can climb these value chains. There's been a lot of pushback from other countries, but notably, those countries are less and less every year in terms of the total volume of trade with China.
Hi, Hong Nguyen. This year marks the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Vietnam and China. Luo Yongkun of the International Institute of International Studies in Shanghai, he said recently, and I'm quoting him here, he said the China-ASEAN relationship is now a vital pillar for regional as well as global development and stability. How do you see it?
Well, I think, yes, in a very turbulent world, more particularly since President Trump came back to the White House, I think China and ASEAN relationship, I think they see each other as like a backup and more strengthened. Because in a vacuum when the US left and also when the US imposed tariff on both ASEAN and also China, so they both see each other as good partners, and they have no choice because this is important for them, and I think that's important, and I can see that it's the relationship between China and ASEAN now in the years to come will further increase and expanded, more particularly when the Trump administration still have that kind of American first policy.
Thomas Noto Suoneto, great to see you, Thomas. Good to have you. Welcome to the show. Now, Indonesia is the member state with the largest economy and population, and it holds significant influence in the bloc. Talk to us about how Indonesia can further strengthen ASEAN's economic integration and resilience with regard to things like food security as well as maritime security.
Right. Thank you for your questions. I think I'll start by giving 2 points. I think at the broader pictures, our Indonesian Business Council see that the Expo is actually a reflection of how ASEAN committed to open regionalism, right, that promotes inter-regional economic integration, including with China in this case. And I think this is something that we wish also to be linked with.
Hi, Thomas. We've lost Thomas. We'll try and get him back. Let me go to Isano. Isano, good to see you as well. Now, as the chair of ASEAN, Malaysia is focused on advancing economic resilience, regional stability, and sustainable development. But, all this is happening when we see these rising tensions between China and the United States, especially over tariffs right now. I mean, how is this going to impact the group?
Well, of course, ASEAN as a whole, we do business, we trade with both China and the United States. Of course, in recent months, we have been preoccupied with dealing with the imposed high tariffs by the United States, by the Trump administration. But as you can see in the Nanning, the group as a whole, ASEAN as a whole, of course, continues to seek more trade opportunities and more investment from China. So I have been fortunate enough to attend this Nanning Expo, I think since almost the very first one back in, I think around 2009 and so on. And I have seen it grow from strength to strength. I still remember the times when it was held in a somewhat makeshift facility, and now whenever I had the opportunity to go, it is in this very imposing convention and expo center. And also you see, for example, whereas during the first few expos, you have a lot of primary agricultural products, but now, as you pointed out, it's primarily services, especially artificial intelligence and the likes. So, of course, we move with the times, and I think all of us look forward to more business opportunities with China.
Okay, and I'm glad to say that we've got Thomas back with us. Thomas, good to have you back with us. You were telling us about Indonesia's, how it could further strengthen ASEAN's economic resilience, as well as, ensure that there is security in the supply of food, as well as maritime security.
Right. I think I just want to touch on the broader pictures first, in terms of the expo itself. I think we see this as actually a commitment of ASEAN to promote open regionalism, right? That we promote interregional economic integration, including with China in this case. And I think we affirm this as actually a good step for us to moving forward, right? And link with the national and the regional priorities of the ASEAN member states. Of course, two of them is the maritime security and then food security. And I think when we talk about interconnectivity, trade, investment, and infrastructure connectivity, I think it's not only constituted in our regional framework, and then I think it's been very beneficial for ASEAN's growth, and I think we wish to extend that with China.
Anna Tang, and I'm going to get back to that point I was discussing with Isano, and that is the impact of Trump's tariffs on trade, but not just between China and the United States, but the broader ASEAN group as well, and the United States. I mean, it's chaotic at times. We don't know what's happening. There's a lot of uncertainty. It's like whiplash. One day we hear an announcement on tariffs. The next day that's changed. We hear of deadlines, and then the deadlines are extended. What kind of impact does that have?
Well, and as we discussed many times, uncertainty is the true enemy of business. You're not going to make any kind of investment if you don't know what's going to happen. And that's particularly true with the United States. If you're banking on trade with the US and you don't know, what the price is going to be, you cannot measure your market impact or your profitability. And this is driving a lot of businesses towards China. Why? China is reliable. It is not putting these unilateral tariffs on any country. They have responded to unilateral moves by the US, but they're an open entity. And instead of, looking backwards, they're looking forwards. In 2024, it was all about people-to-people exchange. I mean, that a lot of people think that this is a very soft idea, but the fact is, when you want to have real trade between countries, you need to understand each other, what services or goods people want. And this is creating an opportunity for small, medium-sized business entities, which are really the lifeblood of all of these nations. With these digital tools, they can now get past all the difficulties that used to prevent them from doing international trade with China. So things continue to progress. The figures paint a very, very strong picture of the fact that you're always going to trade with those you see as reliable.
And Anna, you mentioned a moment ago the Free Trade Agreement 3.0. What exactly does that involve? We've seen the challenges recently on maintaining supply chains, on developing the digital economy, as well as the transition to green economies.
And also supply chain connectivity, very, very important. You can't have trade unless you can get what you have to the markets and vice versa. So, it's the the goal is to deepen industrial collaboration, reduce risks from unilateralism, what we were talking about. But that's the talk points. What's really happening is you see infrastructure investment that is not only outward bound, it is a lot of it is how to promote things within these countries to create markets for goods and to allow these countries to, employ people, have disposable income, improve their infrastructure, improve their daily lives. And this consistent message is really what this China-ASEAN Expo is all about, because it's not exclusive to large entities. You have 160,000 square meters of space, over 3,260 enterprises participating, 60 countries represented. Foreign participation is up to 30% this time around. But one of the things noticeable this year is that a lot of the way that people are talking, especially on the Chinese side, is this is becoming a model, an extension for BRI, which now covers over 140 countries where China is the primary trade partner. So ASEAN is blazing a path, not only for itself, but for a world that is increasingly more connected and to reliable partners, not unreliable ones.
Hi, Hong Nguyen. Vietnam has become one of the fastest growing economies in Southeast Asia. I mean, it's now a major manufacturing hub. It's a major trade hub. How would you describe its contribution to ASEAN?
Well, Vietnam is, of course, now the fourth largest economy in ASEAN. And of course, the trade volume between Vietnam and ASEAN increase yearly. And I think Vietnam is also playing the role as a gateway for external partners going into ASEAN. And that's why when Vietnam increase relationship with external partners, it in a way permits that Vietnam will play as a hub and as a gateway for other countries to go into ASEAN market. And of course, Vietnam's increasingly becomes a very important suppliers. And and of course, Vietnam, for some ASEAN economies, Vietnam becomes a very crucial suppliers. Say, for instance, to the Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam is a stable supplier of rice and many other agricultural products. So I think Vietnam is play a very important and a key contributor to ASEAN increase. And Vietnam really becomes a driver of ASEAN economy, more particularly in a very uncertain world.
And Thomas, looking at Indonesia again, I mean, what role can Indonesia play in helping ASEAN effectively implement its long-term strategies, its long-term visions and goals, especially when it comes to things like developing the blue economies, the green economies as well?
Right. I think I want to highlight that one of the visions in the ASEAN Community 2040 is that we want to be the global manufacturing and industrial hub. It means that our products is actually should be also competitive at the global market. And I think the Expo serve as a bridge for ASEAN actually to also be competitive in the Chinese market. To be honest, we see that China has been very competitively entering the ASEAN market and the trade relationship should be mutually beneficial. We want to promote more ASEAN's quality and uniqueness products to the Chinese market, in which also one of the indicators of how we can also be competitive at the global scale. I was just in Shenzhen a few weeks ago, and I saw myself that the rapid technological advancement, including on AI, in which highlighted at the expo, has been very impressively innovated in China. And I think we wish this to be actually work complementary with the ASEAN economists on how can the technology that is built in China and innovated in China can actually help ASEAN to address its ongoing needs, right? Whether it's on infrastructure, you mentioned about food security just now, in which on how we can intensify our agriculture sector, for example, by AI and automations, and many other sectors, including in the maritime sector, not even more importantly in the creative economy, that is also one of the best sector that ASEAN has.
Isano, the ASEAN Digital Economy Framework Agreement, that's a new strategic roadmap for the region designed to create a unified rules-based economic order in Southeast Asia. What can you tell us about how this works?
Well, I think nowadays a lot of trade is moving online. When we talk about this sort of online trade, it's not only those big and bulky items between and among countries, but even as we purchase a lot of our household goods, for example, increasingly they are conducted online and cross-border. Therefore, you need perhaps a rather robust and resilient regulatory framework in order to facilitate such trade. And also, as you are seeing in Nanning, there's a lot of collaborations, a lot of innovations in artificial intelligence. And again, you need some sort of digital regulatory frameworks that could protect the interests, the rights of the consumers, for example, and to make sure the security of the region it's well protected. So I think when we having this collaboration over this digital framework, those are some of the aims that we are trying to get to. But of course, it's not easy because it's something new for a lot of countries in the region. Malaysia being perhaps one of the more developed countries within ASEAN, and this year's rotating ASEAN chairperson, it's of course taking a lead in this regard.
Aina, China and ASEAN are collaborating to establish the regional digital ecosystem through the digital framework. And what that will do is that it will unify digital trade rules. It will also foster security, especially on cross-border transfers of data. How do you see its impact from a Chinese perspective?
Well, China's, they're dedicated to this kind of win-win idea, very different from the, zero-sum game. And this is the embodiment of that. I mean, what you have here is they're continuing to try to strengthen ties to, create that balance between individual privacy and national security, and then the usefulness of the data itself. Until you have that, the digital economy is just something you're going to be talking about. So China is making real headway in that. And a lot of that is about setting standards. And this isn't something you see up front, but is very important to every single country that's out there. They need to know, exactly what the rules are, especially when it comes to interoperability, the ability of a trade platform or a payment platform in Indonesia to work seamlessly in China and vice versa. And as I said, a lot of this ties back to this kind of new green area of expansion, which is small, medium-sized business enterprises, which are really poised to take the upper hand. If you're a small producer of something very special, now you can bring it to market, find people who really appreciate that, and get a premium on your price, as opposed to just selling your product to some large entity that just mixes it together with everything else. You're going to see a lot of specialization, but that is going to take digitalization.
Hi, Hong Nguyen. How does Vietnam see its participation in all these agreements as a member of ASEAN, these ASEAN economic agreements? And has that in a way accelerated its growth into the global economy?
Yes, Vietnam has a very big ambitions to become and play more importance in the supply chains in the world, not only in the regions. And that's why Vietnam foreign policy is to really upholding multilateralism, and Vietnam consider participating in this multilateral agreement is a way in order for it to exert influence to integrate more into the regions and the world. And that's why Vietnam is willing to take part in multilateral agreements. And Vietnam even recently was invited to take part in the CSO summit in China. And Vietnam consider participating in that kind of forum and mechanism is a way for it to increase its influence and its position in international arena. So, and of course, on the other hand, Vietnam is benefiting a lot in accessing to the markets. So far, Vietnam has signed 17 multilateral agreements, including the new generations of free trade agreements. And Vietnam is still negotiating more free trade agreement with other countries. So Vietnam is willing to become, and more particularly in line with its goal to become a developed country in 2045.
Isano, very quickly, I've only got about a minute left, but the ASEAN Express, that's a new cross-border freight train service, is up and running now. It connects China with Malaysia, Thailand, and Laos. What kind of impact is that having on the regional economy?
Well, of course, hopefully along the line, we'll have pockets and hubs of or spots for development. I think China's example of having this sort of high-speed rail and then with new centers for growth sprouting up and so forth would be a very good example and role model for a lot of these Southeast Asian countries along this line to emulate and hopefully both the volumes as well as the quality of trade with China would increase accordingly.
Okay, and that is where we have to leave a thank you to all of you for being with us. That is it for this edition of The Heat. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington.